Greetings and welcome to Cyber Focus, your source for international business information. My name is Jimmy Bettcher and our guest today is Raphael Tyson. Raphael is a founding member and chairman of the board of Kingsbridge Corporate Services Limited and Kingsbridge Microfinance Limited, both based in Accra, Ghana. A finance graduate from Rutgers University, he previously served as an investment banking analyst with JP Chase, specializing in global loan trading. He splits his time between living in Delaware and in Ghana. Raphael is here at the Kelley School to participate in GLOBASE, an MBA consulting program involving global businesses and social enterprises. Raphael, welcome.
Thank you.
First off, can you tell us a little bit more about Kingsbridge?
Kingsbridge, actually, it's obviously based in Ghana. Started in 2007 between myself and my partner, Manasseh Potofi, with the assistance of Raphael Tyson. And what we did was, our goal is to set up an organization that will look out for the underserved Ghanaian community. Currently, as you know, I have explained, in my previous speaking engagements, Kingsbridge was formalized to assist Ghanaians who have been trying to set up business to, be independent, and as a result of their inability to get service from the traditional banks, they are left, on their own. As a result, it does affect the Ghanaian economy negatively. So, being out here working with JP Morgan for a while, I decided that, I might as well need to take something back home, what I've learned here, and, start Kingsbridge on a smaller version, but be able to reach out to the underserved community.
Just a quick aside for our viewers not familiar with microfinance, could you briefly define what microfinance is to you and to Kingsbridge?
Microfinance, actually, I know has been around, I would say, all life long, not only in my life, but it's been in existence since the creation of life. And it's an entrepreneurship program that, is established to look out for folks who have ideas, however, they have no way of really making it happen. And talking of making it happen is, arises from, lack of cash, or, lack of the push from an established industry that could help them make something out of the ideas. So microfinance, was literally set up, and it has been very more pronouncedly, globalized now with the help of Muhammad Yunus out of Bangladesh, where a group of folks can be assisted with a small amount of money, training to help them, bring their ideas into fruition, help their family structures, but on the same token, be able to also help the community they come from, which in a way also in the long term helps the economy of their respective countries as well. Microfinance does start with small amounts as loan credit facilitation to these individuals. In Ghana, for instance, with Kingsbridge, as I would say, we have a loan size of maybe about $200, all the way to about $50,000 worth of loan, depending on the type of business presented to us. And there are several structures we have in place, to manage these microfinance activities. With Kingsbridge, we have, 3-tier program, where the first tier is usually our first-time loan borrowers, and they are being set up in group formation, where they could come in about a group of about 5 to 7 folks. They'll present their idea individually, but the reason for the grouping is to help, mobilize themselves, help police themselves, help look out for themselves, and share ideas communally to, get everyone be successful. And then we have a second tier, which is usually a graduation from the first tier, the group level, to individualized loan system. And at that point in time, too, their loan size increase as well, usually ranging between $1,000 to about $3,000 range. And at that point in time, there is, good enough relationship built between Kingsbridge and this client, number one. There is, the level of confidence being achieved by these, borrowers. And at that point in time, to supervision from Kingsbridge is minimal. So it makes it easier for us to, manage those. It makes it easier for them to be able to manage themselves, and that gives us room to even look and reach out for more first-timers as well. And then we move on to the third phase. The third phase usually also comes as a form of a graduation from the second phase into a much higher loan. And at that point in time, we're expecting our clients to be more or less sustainable, number one. There is a second group that comes in as well, and this group are usually individuals who are already in the business field doing their businesses. However, they might be cash strapped or looking for additional cash injection to expand their businesses, and those are the kinds that we have, a much higher loan size. Talking of, between 10,000 to 30,000. We've had a few occurrences of, $50,000 loans, and they are usually short term. Obviously, we have to be mindful of risk, so we try not to, we try to perform, a higher level due diligence to make sure that, funds being given to these folks are well managed for us to be able to recoup our repayment back.
For sure.
Yeah. Pretty much that's about it with, our structure, our loan structure. And in a way, it's been a good, I would say, backbone to the Ghanaian economy, as we speak.
Great. So Kingsbridge has been in operations for nearly 5 years now. What are going to be the keys to scaling and expanding Kingsbridge?
I'm glad you brought that up because this year, 2012, our goal is to expand into 3 locations actually. Currently, we are in Achimota, based in Accra. However, after 5 years, we figured it's about time we start exploring other market locations and expand our outreach. So we are looking at first half of 2012 to expand into a second location, and then by the close of 2012, bring on an additional branching, and by so doing, it will help us, be able to observe the market dynamics in the country with respect to microfinance.
Sure.
I'm glad also to say that this year, the Central Bank of Ghana has been actively involved in microfinancing, where now they have set up regulatory measures, number one, and also issuing licenses to these microfinance agencies. And they have a couple of tiers that they have put in place. Kingsbridge falls under tier 2, which allows us to operate as a full-fledged microfinance. And with that said, we will also be able to, take in deposits. So in a way, we are etching ourselves towards like, a saving and loans type of, approach, which in a way gives us a much stronger credibility, to the rest of the world, especially when we're trying to forge alliances with other organizations.
Great. Moving a bit more broadly, what are some of the key challenges to doing business in Ghana?
Challenge-wise, obviously, first and foremost, boils down to funding. Funding, and that one I would say is a global challenge. I would say among any entrepreneurial activity. However, when it comes to Ghana, being that it's coming from Africa, it becomes even much more difficult to be able to, sell an idea of a thriving business to the rest of the world. That is one thing. Secondly, should the business be small, like how Kingsbridge started, even becomes more difficult because half of the time you will get on the call with other organizations or investment engines trying to get funding, and they are looking for a portfolio, gross loan portfolio that is usually tougher to achieve as a smaller organization, and as a result, that always end up holding us back in really realizing the dream of what we could achieve as an organization. That is one. On the operational side of things, I always say it's very necessary for us as microfinance agencies to be very mindful of the cultural terrain we are dealing in, because half of the time, I remember one time I was walking through the hallways of Heathrow Airport, and they have signs on the wall showing how each and every country interprets a particular saying or sign or color, and that makes good enough sense in that in Ghana, the way I could observe a given client could be different from how someone else from another organization could translate their presentation of their business plan. And it's very, very necessary to look out for that, which I would say is one of our major challenges, because someone can sit in front of you and present an idea. However, at the back of his mind, there is a whole different game plan as to what the money is going to be used for, which in a way with us, the way we try to combat that is by more or less playing a role of a big brother, big sister type of approach, being in their business, family life, visiting them in their homes, stopping by at their business location and stuff to investigate the credibility of what they are doing, how well they are doing it, what their vision is. They could present their vision verbally, but usually it might not translate into what the funds being applied for. So we being on the ground with them help us to more or less analyze and be able to envision what the future should look like, which in a way help us to determine whether to qualify or disqualify a given client.
Well, we've been talking about challenges of doing business in Ghana. What kinds of opportunities do you see now in the Ghanaian economy?
The Ghanaian economy actually is thriving right now. I mean, we are looking at an economy that is, floating between 8 and 10% in growth. And inflation has been very, very stabilized, floating around, I would say, between 7 and 8%. 20 years ago, we don't even measure inflation simply because it was just off the chart. You get what I mean? Yeah. And now it has been stabilized within this. If you should compare it to, the 2 to 3, between 1 and 3% of the U.S. and the advanced economies, I think we've come a long way, and we're still working our way towards, a much lower, inflation rate. But that are signs that tells you, country-wise, Ghana is growing somewhat. How does that trickle or affect our businesses? It's all about, us being on the ground, knowing what our people feel, knowing their expectations, and be able to translate that expectation into our operational activities and more or less merge the two into a balance. And so far, we're talking about growth. I can give you a good example about Kingsbridge for once. We started with, a much smaller amount. Our first year, we closed with about $70,000 worth of revenue. As we speak, we closed 2011 with close to 1.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah. So that tells you, it does give you a good insight to the progression of growth in the country. There is the demand for cash for various businesses. Ghanaians are very, very entrepreneurial. I was talking to a friend who was just amazed how compared to the United States, how huge the entrepreneurial activity and spirit of Ghanaians, I would say even of West Africans, is. It's just phenomenal, and that gives me a good feel of what we could do 10 years from now. Should there be the right and appropriate channeling of funding into our system.
Great. Well, with this relatively steady and massive growth in the Ghanaian economy, I think there's probably a number of potential viewers of this program who are Americans who are considering investments potentially in Ghana or working with Ghanaian businesses. Do you have any advice for how they should approach, trying to seize on that opportunity?
Yeah, I know one thing I would say first and foremost, Ghana is growing. As a result, there've been a huge influx of foreign investors, taking a look at the country as a whole. There is so much opportunities, and this is how I look at it. I mean, looking at the United States, for instance, it's obviously the best country in the world with a nice size of growth, even though it's been stagnant lately due to a few issues U.S. have faced. It still has the potential of still running the show globally. However, as a startup especially, or a business coming into the playing field altogether, it's much more competitive to do a business in here compared to doing a business in a virgin territory like Ghana. And our resources are still in full bloom. And as the potential scales up, it's easy to get in, be able to achieve what your business ideas or your game plan would be. One thing I will point out though is it's always a good idea to line up or align yourself with an in-country, a Ghanaian resources. And the reason why I say this is because I always, take into consideration the cultural attributes of a given location.
Yeah, for sure.
Out here in the United States, we can, build a business on paper and it will thrive because the expectation of American business person is to more or less draw it on paper, have his or her expectations in black and white, and the next person can pick it up and be able to translate it.
Yeah.
Whilst in the African territory, there is this gray area that you always have to make sure you are aware of. And that gray area comes by way of performing an in-depth KYC, which is knowing your client and knowing how to deal with them. And half of the time, culturally, it becomes a challenge for overseas investors to really dig into that. So I always say it's always good to have, a partner or have an alliance that are, in country, know how the country terrain is, know how the people think, and be able to, use that to more or less translate your ideas and also in return be able to understand the market.
Okay. Well, you're here at the Kelley School to work with the GLOBASE program. Could you share a little bit about what it's been like working with MBA Consultants and what the experience has been for you, especially in the case of Kingsbridge, who's been involved for over a year now as well?
I would say, our involvement with, number one, GLOBASE has been, godsend. It's been a great value addition resources to Kingsbridge in a sense that when we started Kingsbridge, obviously being fortunate enough to work, be part of JP Morgan where I did investment banking, I was able to drill into how businesses are done in the United States, the level of efficiency be put into running a business in the United States. So going back to start Kingsbridge, I still had that dream, that need to promote that same level of efficiency, and that is where previously I was talking about the expectation of the American on a foreign soil like Ghana, because it was a little bit of a challenge, trying to have the folks I work with see the vision, see the passion, see the direction I want us to take, and in a way, it became a little bit of a difficulty. However, getting GLOBASE involved and bringing into fruition my ideas as to how businesses are done in a timely fashion, effectively, efficiently. It has helped my guys to now see the light as to what I'm trying to translate to them. It has also helped us a lot to draw a roadmap into the 5-year timeline. Last year, when we were here, we worked with a project group who recommended that a SUSU, which SUSU is a voluntary savings program that is being, popularly done in Ghana, and we put across to them how we could improve that processes, because it has a lot of setbacks, a lot of challenging situations with it, where operators are and running, stealing folks' money and stuff like that, and there is no control systems in place to manage how it's done. Thanks to GLOBASE, we were able to come up with a platform that has been able to not only help Kingsbridge, but bring a few SUSU operators under Kingsbridge umbrella to manage it efficiently and keep a tight QCs in place.
Yeah. Great. Well, your involvement with the Kelley School has expanded a bit beyond just simply GLOBASE as well. Now you serve on the advisory board to the Institute for International Business as well. Could you share a little bit about what that experience has been like?
As a business leader, I would say my involvement now with Institute of International Business at Kelley School has been a blessing. A blessing in the sense that being able to be in the in board meetings, even though my input is required by way of advisory to what Kelley School could do for the African community. In return, we also looking to give back, and giving back, I mean having, in a way, Kelley broaden their outlook, getting Kelley to be able to capture the attention of various Ghanaian students or Ghanaian families that are looking to have their siblings a venture into the real world and be able to capture the global vibe going on right now, which half of the time is being shielded from the African community in the past years. Also, as a member of the advisory board, I'm very happy to say that sitting in these board meetings, it exposes me to learn more about what is going on among the various leaders in the industry who are members of the board, and be able to try and adapt some of their strategies to what Kingsbridge should be like.
Great. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. Raphael, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciated your insights.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
And we definitely hope that you enjoy the rest of your time here in Bloomington as well.
Surely do. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. If you have topics that you'd like to discuss in a future episode of Cyber Focus, please contact the Center for International Business Education and Research here at the Kelley School. Thanks.